welcome again to my classroom. Continuing with our topic of soil architecture, today we shall see how the aggregates are formed, or in other words, we can say genesis of soil structure. As discussed in our previous lectures, I told that the soil is composed of three types of primary particles: sand, silt and clay. But under natural conditions, these primary particles do not exist as individual particles. Rather, these are present in aggregated form. And an aggregate which is formed under natural conditions is called as bed. And if an aggregate is formed due to cultural practices like you have tillage and other practices, or anthropogenic activities, man-made activities, we call this as clod. And sometimes what happens that the aggregate formed under natural conditions, the cementing becomes irreversible. Then we call this aggregate as concrete. So, basically ped, clod or concrete, these are all aggregates but formed under different conditions. So, again a ped is formed under natural conditions, clod is formed due to anthropogenic activities, whereas a concrete could be a ped or a clod where the cementation becomes irreversible. And you cannot simply destabilize this concretion by putting the aggregate into water. It will not dissolve. So, you will have to dissolve with certain acids and all that. Now, the question is how these aggregates are formed. So, if I say the genesis of soil structure, it basically comprises of two processes. One is flocculation. So, here I will say this genesis of soil structure comprises of flocculation and cementation. So, both these processes are important for an aggregate to be formed. So, flocculation means coming together of aggregates by different forces, and these forces could be of two types. One is intramolecular, these intramolecular forces, these are in fact the covalent bonds which join the molecules together. And the second type of the force of attraction could be the intermolecular forces. Intermolecular forces, these are basically the van der Waals forces of attraction. Van der Waals forces of attraction. So, this is how, because of these intramolecular and intermolecular forces of attraction, the particles, these come closer to each other, they form a floccule. So, if I say that these are clay particles, these clay particles, because of these two type of forces come together, they form a floccule. So, here it is a floccule. So, there is no cementation, but this is a mass of soil particles attracting each other because of different forces. Then this floccule gets converted into domain. That means domain is nothing but cemented floccule. Let me call it as cemented floccule. So, here now the cementation starts and a domain is formed, and this domain generally is very small in size. Its size could vary from 2 to 5 micrometers. Then many domains, they again are joined together, they get joined together to form a micro aggregate. could be bigger in size, could be 1 domain, 2 domain, 3 domains, and this is how a microaggregate is formed. So this is a micro aggregate, and its size could range between 5 to 500 micrometers. This is a microaggregate, and then many microaggregates may join together to form a bigger aggregate. So here it could be the combination of microaggregates. So this is called macro aggregate, having size ranging from 0.5 to 5 millimeters. So macro aggregates have the size between 0.5 to 5, and any aggregate more than 5 millimeter in size, we call this as clod. So what you see that when we till the soil, first large clods are formed. When you again till the soil, those clods get broken down into smaller aggregates. So whatever aggregate having size more than 5 millimeter is called clod. Now the question is, this is in nutshell the process of formation of aggregate. Now let us decide that how these cementing agents they act. What are those different types of cementing agents? What is their mode of action? So we can say that cementing agents basically are of 3 types, depending upon the stage of organic matter decomposition. Cementing agents. So first of all, we have transient binding agents. Why we call these as transient? Because the organic matter which is added into the soil, this could be crop residues, this could be animal residues, etc. When these are added into the soil, because these organic matter or residues, organic residues are basically the food for microorganisms. So microorganisms, they start decomposing these organic residues, and some during this decomposition process, there is formation of some polysaccharides. You can say these are the byproducts of microbial decomposition. Saccharides, which can be very rapidly again decomposed by the microorganisms, or then there can be certain cellulose. So relatively unstable byproducts of organic matter decomposition, but the time they remain in the soil, they help in binding the soil particles, they help in binding the aggregates, rather I should say. In fact, cellulase they bind the particles greater than, or you can say up to 50 micrometers, whereas the polysaccharides, they are associated with the aggregates having size 250 micrometers. So in fact, these transient binding agents, they may persist in the soil for the few weeks or up to a couple of months, depending upon the conditions favorable for their decomposition. The sooner they get decomposed, shorter will be their persistence in the soil, and then once they get decomposed, then these aggregates may again become destabilized or get broken down or get weakened. So this is how the transient organic cementing agents they work. And then another type of cementing agent is temporary binding agents. So temporary binding agents in fact are roots and mycorrhizae. Mycorrhizae, these are simply the fungi, or you can say fungus hyphae, fungal hyphae, I should say rather, fungal hyphae. Now these roots, roots when they grow in the soil, plant gets older, the roots also start remain, growing in the soil, branching and forming the root hairs. But at the same time, some of the roots or root hairs or finer roots, they die also. So there are some dead cells of roots which become again, they become the food for microorganisms. They become rather your part of organic matter. Then roots, then you have root hair. Root hair, in fact, they apart from absorbing nutrients and moisture from the soil in the form of soil solution, root hair also help in binding the soil particles, because these are very fine hair. And then some mucilages are also produced from the roots, different roots, it depends on the type of roots. So they produce mucilages. So mucilages are organic compounds which again help in binding the particles. But these are all temporary binding agents, because ultimately they are also going to decompose. But the question is their persistence in the soil may be from few months even up to an year So depending upon the conditions conditions favorable for decomposition of these. So this is how the roots, they are called, they help as temporary binding agents. Then we have mycorrhizal. When the crop starts growing, different type of mycorrhizae, different types of microorganisms, I should say, they start working in the soil, and around 50% of, more than 50% of total biomass, microbial biomass, I should say, microbial biomass is comprised of the mycorrhizae fungus. So this is very quickly growing microorganisms in the soil, and they help binding the soil particles or aggregates, help binding aggregates having size more than 250 micrometers. So as I said, their persistence in the soil varies from few weeks to a few months to approximately 1 year or so. That's why they are called temporary binding agents. So both transient and temporary binding agents, they help in binding the soil particles, and particularly their role is more in binding the micro and macro aggregates than domain or even smaller micro aggregates. So larger the aggregate, more will be the role of these transient and temporary binding agents. Third type of and most important type of binding agent is what we call as persistent. As the name suggests, they persist in the soil. Persistent binding agent. They persist in the soil for a longer period of time. And as we have discussed, whatever organic matter you are adding into the soil, it ultimately gets converted into humus. And I told you that humus is generally people consider it to be the end product, but actually it's not the end product. Though it persists for a longer time in the soil, it also remains on decomposing, but the rate of decomposition being very, very slow, we generally say that okay, humus is the final end product of organic matter decomposition. And humus basically is polycarbon chains. So this polycarbon chain is associated with organo-mineral complexes, mineral, or better you call it as these are associated with polyvalent cations, and ultimately the clay particles. So the mechanism is, you see how this mechanism or role plays. So here you have, say it is humus, because humus is again, you know, it has a net charge, and same is true with clay particles. The clay particles, they also have a net charge. So because of the forces, what you call as intermolecule and intermolecule forces, you have formation of sort of clay skin. So this is how the particles get attracted. Then you may have another layer of clay particles, and then it will be, say, you may have sesquioxides, iron, aluminium, you know, sodium or potassium, whatever these complexes, you know, these are formed, sesquioxides and all that. Then aluminosilicates, Al2, I should say Al2O, SiO3O4, aluminosilicates. So ultimately it is, you know, polyvalent cations. A chain is formed, polyvalent cations associated with clay particles and associated with, you know, what you call as humus. So humus basically gets encapsulated in this. First of all, you know, it might be a domain, then you may have another domain. So this could be one domain, this could be another domain, and then these domains are joined by you know, maybe by temporary binding agents or transient binding agents, like this. So this is ultimately, you have the formation of an aggregate. So here that's why generally now it is said that we should go for a minimum disturbance of the soil. Soil should not be tilled extensively. The reason being, the more you till the soil, you are basically breaking down the aggregates and particularly the micro aggregates, and this humus then gets, you know, exposed. When it is exposed, then it is easily susceptible to decomposition, and your soil may, you know, when it decomposes, this humus or it goes back into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. So that's why we say that when this humus, basically this is carbon dioxide captured from the atmosphere, this gets you know, sequestered into the soil, and if you till it, you expose this humus, so its susceptibility towards decomposition increases. So carbon again will be lost into the atmosphere by increasing the carbon dioxide content in the atmosphere. So this is how, if I say now you have the micro aggregates, and on the other hand you have macro aggregates. So if I ask you that out of these two, which one are stable, so better will be this. These are relatively stable, this is relatively, you can say, less stable. The reason being, this micro aggregate is more associated with polyvalent clay humus chains, whereas this is formed by fungal hyphae, root hair. So second is, this is not easily affected by land use change. Land use change, but this is affected by land use change. Because say if land use changes changes from agriculture to agroforestry something, so there will be more dominance of, then macro aggregates, they may get you know, they may disappear, and you may have more micro aggregates. But in case a soil having dominance of micro aggregates, if the land use is converted say from from forest to agriculture, there not be much change in the micro aggregation of the soil. So this is how you can differentiate between macro and micro aggregates, and they get stabilized under under fallow and pasture conditions. So this again, as I said, micro aggregates, they decrease with tillage and row cropping. Apart from this type of genesis of soil structure, two more important phenomenon are there. The one is what we call as physical processes. So of these physical processes of aggregation, you may have freezing and thawing, and we may have wetting and drying. In both these cases, if you have a bigger clod and you are wetting it, so its specific volume will increase. Once it starts drying, so with drying, what happens that the soil mass gets shrunk, and cracks are formed because specific volume decreases. So that cracks, they result in formation of different sizes of aggregates. Same is true with freezing and thawing. When soil it freezes, so the specific volume of the soil increases, and when it thaws, again there is shrinkage. Due to shrinkage, there is formation of again different sizes of aggregates. So, but again the basic process remain the same. How the clay particles and silt particles, they come closer to each other, how a clay skin is formed, domain, floccule, domain, micro aggregate, macro aggregate. This is, but again macro aggregates or clods could be affected by these physical processes, which are very important in defining the strength and size of the particles, even shape of the particles also. So this is all about soil structure. Thank you very much.